everyone. Glad you could join us. Let's get started now. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ryan McKinster. I'm the Government Affairs Director here at BIA. Just going to introduce a few people before we get started. We have Andrea Smith, who is our Communications and Education Manager at BIA. Also have Danielle, who is our Events Director here at BIA on. We have two guests. We have Mark Maher from the Mallory Safety Company, and then we also have James Strohecker. They're going to be kind of the second item on our agenda, talking about PPE, some solutions they may have, or some stuff along those lines. I know it's been a concern of some of our people, if we're allowed to move forward, what we're going to do to facilitate some of the things that are needed under the proposal. So yeah, while we go through this, feel free if you want to, just pipe in, make sure you take yourself off mute. I can just, I don't think it'll become a problem. It wasn't last time. So if you just pipe in, we can just recognize you and you can go ahead and ask any questions. It's easier to do that than wait till the end. So if for some reason I miss you and you want to do it, feel free to hit the little hand button. There's a little raise your hand button too. That makes it a little bit more obvious, but we didn't really need that last time. So just to get started, first of all, the governor's EO, there's not much change there. I think you're all aware of where we sit with that. If you're not aware, there's been a working group, BIA, and then through BIAW has worked along with a group of other stakeholders from some of the labor groups and some of the other construction industry groups, including commercial, got together to address some of the concerns the governor's laid out with our industry being able to function underneath the requirements of CDC and the COVID protection and safety requirements. They came to a proposal that they actually gave to the governor last Monday night. We were hoping to hear a response from the governor by the end of this last week. We have not. And so that is kind of where we sit. We're still waiting for that. That does lead into why we're talking about PPE today. This proposal is fairly extensive. It's about 3 pages of things that are required or expected of us on the job site to stay safe. Designed to give the governor some cover, as well as some reassurances to some of his departments that we can, basically operate the way we already know we can in a safe environment, but actually putting it in writing. I'm assuming most of you have seen it. If not, it has been sent to you with this event in the email. It will also go out with the notes afterwards. Just some of the highlights are obviously social distancing is a main aspect of this, but in addition, one of the other highlights is there's going to be some safety training for COVID-19. That would basically be your toolbox talk, your tailgate training, just kind of updating that. Also tracking kind of who's on the site and who's off the site with some site of sign up. I guess before I get more into this, people have asked me a lot of questions about this proposal and what do they need to do? What does this look like? What are the specifics? This is a proposal. Until the governor accepts it, we do not know how far it's going to go. It could be just accepted as we have written and you guys have seen. It could go farther. It could be used like it is currently recommended as guidelines that we're required to follow, but not put into any type of formal statement, or it could go through L&I or something like that. We do not know where that's going to be right now, so I can't answer those questions, what the specifics would be. But the idea is here's a framework we're going to work in along with our other partners in the other industries and the other trade unions to move forward, to get us back to work. So that's kind of where that stands. Obviously, you have safety training. A couple of the other things is having someone that's a little bit more versed in the safety training on the site that's responsible for that, responsible for letting your employee, if one of your employees looks sick or says something that leads you to believe that, or they let you know they're not feeling well, then basically a simple protocol is put into place where they're asked to go home. You basically figure out who they were around, you clean everything off, and then you provide that information to make sure there's contact tracking. The intent is we want to make this as easy as possible to comply with contact tracing and everything else that CDC recommends and the governor's office is looking for when they're trying to limit exposure and limit the number of cases as we try to move forward to minimizing those. I don't think there's really a need to go into this in depth too much. I think you've all seen it. I am always available for questions now or anytime afterwards if you want to ask me. But again, this is a proposal has not been adopted, so I can't speak to the nuance the governor is going to under enforcement. But the idea is we wanted to let you know that there's something out there. We are working very hard to get the governor to give us a chance to go back. We've created a framework for it. It's in his court, but also to make you aware of this, because if it is go into effect, say the governor chooses to move with this tomorrow and says next Monday we're starting with this, there's stuff along the lines of requirements that you're going to need to be prepared for. You can't just go back to work. There's safety requirements as well as PPE, which is the big issue we're having the meeting today for. And I guess before I go on to one more part about the safety pledge, is there any questions about this proposal, how we got here, some of the nuance of it? Okay, no hands raised. Okay, next thing on the agenda also under this, there's a safety pledge. As I mentioned, we had hoped to hear some response from the governor by the end of the week last week. The stakeholder group has not heard any response. It's been radio silence. And so along those lines, BIAW had like a little bit of an internal deadline saying, if we don't hear something, we want to start moving forward with a little bit of a public pressure campaign or an outreach campaign from our industry. Included in the agenda I sent you, as well as on our COVID-19 linked page on BIA of clarkcounty.org, there is a link to a safety pledge. This is a soft push to the governor to accept our proposal. Other jurisdictions, other HBAs have had a little bit more of a sharp edge to some of their comments. This is a request that BIAW is putting out, basically saying we're making a pledge to follow all the rules in this proposal to keep our industry and to keep our fellow Washingtonians safe. So it is to show that there's a show of strength and an agreement with our industry to move forward with this proposal, but it is not being, as I would say, combative as some other efforts that are going on out there. There's a lot of effort that's been put into this, and we're trying to recognize that some jurisdictions and some others are choosing that, and that's fine for them. We're trying to just say, hey, we can go back to work and we can do it safely. So I would encourage you to sign that letter through that link. And if you want to send your own letter or email to the governor, I would encourage that as well. That's always much more powerful. In addition, I would encourage you to have your clients send stuff, especially if they're stuck without a home, if they're in limbo while they're moving to other places. That is the most valuable. And if you do get that from your client, please forward me a copy as well, because I would like to get it to their appropriate jurisdiction. We've got 4 jurisdictions, which you guys are all aware of, that are being friendly, that are working with us and basically pushing what we can do to the line of the governor's order. We have a couple others that are not. After Mark gives us an update on the PPP issue, I can go through the individual jurisdictions a little bit more and answer those questions. So that's where it sits with the governor's EO and the safety pledge and the request for you guys to, a soft pressure campaign towards the governor. Does anybody have any questions on either of those issues or suggestions or comments? Okay. Well, along those lines, as I mentioned, PPP is a very important part and a very large part of the proposal we've given to the governor. Whether or not he accepts this proposal, we're pretty confident as we go back to work, there will be PPE requirements no matter what the governor decides. We know that's going to exist. A lot of people in our industry already, have some extent, they participate in this when they're doing, working with chemicals or obviously cutting concrete. We know that's a big one we've been working on and some other things like that. So they're used to it, but this is going to be more comprehensive. Basically, every on-site has to have some type of PPE. There's going to need to be signage and a couple other things that are listed in this. Talking to a few of our members, a few of you on the phone today or on this call today, there's concern with the pipeline for getting that kind of safety equipment on site for you. A lot of people I spoke to have smaller ones. They get through some of the purveyors, but they're small orders. They're not enough to keep them supplied for every member on their job site for the foreseeable future. The nature of that just being that they don't have the logistical pipeline to keep the stuff supplied like you would if you're going through as much as PPE as we're probably going to need. Luckily, we have a resource in the Mallory company who works on large scale. They are a safety equipment company. This is what they do. And so they can provide a source for that stuff that has a consistent pipeline, so you guys have an easier time getting that. I know that's been a large concern, and since the proposal came out, I said that's probably been the biggest question I've gotten. So I was lucky enough to reach out to Mallory. They're lucky enough for them to say that Mark and James say, hey, we can talk about it. We want to let you guys know what kind of solutions we can provide. And so I have Mark and James here on the phone, and I believe Mark is going to be able to speak to this. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. I don't know if James is here yet or going to be, but I'll do my best here. What I'd like to do is share this flyer that we've developed. Do I just click this share down at the bottom?
Yep,
And
you should be able to.
Okay. All right. So is everyone seeing this this flyer here?
Yep.
On Washington construction restart, COVID-19 job site requirements.
Yep, we've got it.
Okay. So I appreciate everybody allowing us to talk about this here this morning. We took these highlights directly from the letter that Ryan and the group drafted for the governor, and try to break this down into smaller parts that are going to affect you individually on your job sites. So we bullet pointed a few of the topics up here, and just wanted to put something together that gives you the easy button to get back to work. You know, where do I get the gloves? Where do I get the signage? Where can I get some masks? And this is the big one, as you know, if you're watching the news at all, it's all about masks. Well, the document that was drafted and sent to the governor is talking about compliance masks. These are a lot different than your traditional N95s that you've been hearing so much about. These are launderable. These are inexpensive. They're long lasting. You don't throw them away after you use them. And this is the kind of mask that is going to be likely required on the job sites. So our intent was to put together just a package of products that meets the need so that you guys can comply easily without, you know, sending one of your people to multiple different stores or making a lot of phone calls or surfing the web for hours trying to find everything. I can't say today that we will never run out of these products, because we do have a global demand that far exceeds the supply capabilities. But we've done a really, really good job of keeping these items in stock and available for our customers. So what I'm hoping for is that you guys can give me some feedback. We've added a couple of additional topics in here. If you have concerns or questions about fall protection, hydration, now that we're coming into some warmer months, first aid, floor marking tape, could be anything. We are a very broad wholesale distributor, so that if you need something on your job site, it's likely that we will have it here in one of our warehouses. So we're just hoping that we can open a dialogue and create an avenue for you guys to solve some of your challenges on site. And would just like to get your feedback about this document, and if this is something that would be beneficial for you all in trying to source these products that will be needed.
Hey, Mark, this is Ryan. Can you mention the idea that you guys kind of came up with, like figuring out like a package? Say if you had, you know, if you're building 6 houses, here's what we think you need to get through a week or 2 weeks, the package concept, just generally, not specifics, but I thought that was very valuable.
Yes, in general, you'll need certain PPE by employee. So it doesn't say what kind of glove. It could be leather gloves to the nitrile gloves that you see kind of in an exam room. But our package, if you're going to a new site, you've got to have proper signage on the site near any hand washing facilities. There's also a requirement in there that you may have read about logging of employees that come on the site by day. This might be one of the biggest challenges that you have. But just if you're starting fresh on a new job, we want to be able to put a package together so that you can just say, hey, I just need the new job site package, and it will include X number of items. So just want some feedback on that, or if you think you just want to pick and choose what you need because it's not always going to be the same, we want to make this as easy as we can. So any comments, please let us know.
Yeah, so this is Ryan again. Yeah, if you guys have any comments or concerns about this, I know a few of my members had some concerns about this proposal and the costs associated with it. I mean, the cost of not doing this is not working, but nonetheless, we have to be very conscious of the cost of this. And talking with Mark and James, they assured me that actually the cost is going to be fairly nominal. I mean, it's not going to be thousands of dollars per site, right? This is going to be, although you don't want to spend any more money than you have to for your job sites, right? We know what the price of housing is right now. They said this is very doable. I'm not sure if they want to speak to that, but I was rather happy when I heard that this is going to be negligible and comparable to very small costs on your site. If James or Mark wanted to speak to that real quick.
Sure, Ryan, thanks for the lead in on that. As most of you probably know, these types of products aren't terribly expensive, and outfitting, a dozen guys, we're talking about, a couple of $100. We're not talking thousands here. So it's just routine PPE items, glasses, goggles, possibly the masks, the signage, gloves. I mean, I could really see this being less than $100 for a new job site. So not a big hurdle to clear, I don't think. Easily rolled into job costs expense if you bid it that way, or, absorbed if you didn't. But as Ryan said, I guess the caveat or the other side of the coin is if there's a potential of having your job site shut down if you're not complying. And obviously that would be a lot more expensive than, what these items cost.
So did anybody have any questions for Mark or James? I know I had one or two questions in my registration form specifically asking about this stuff. How do we comply? What do we need to do? Where do we get it? I basically, here's one way to get it. The intent was to try to get everything in one place. And like I said, to have a fairly resilient supply chain, because I've heard from members that were already going to Home Depot trying to grab masks, so they had some in stock.
Brian, quick question. Mark and James, Aaron with Generation Homes. Appreciate you guys putting this together. I think it's fantastic to have a central location we can go for the majority of this stuff. That makes it really convenient for us. Trying to go out there and piecemeal this is going to be a challenge. And so just curious, if we put an order in, what's the lead time for actually getting the product shipped?
Oh, that's a great question. We're expecting that lead time will be immediate, possibly next day in many cases. What we would like to do is hopefully have all the product here in Portland that we can ship to a job site or a central location. If you guys all wanted to combine and create a cache of products that you all could pull from, that would be one option. If not, we can easily pick, pack, and ship to any location that you'd like. I'd say out of everything we're looking at here on the screen right now, signage we don't have in stock, but that's a one-day turnaround from our supplier, and it's not really affected by the pandemic purchases out there. The masks that you see here, we have ordered close to 40,000 of these from a US-based supplier that we believe is going to be able to provide product to us. We should have this stuff within a few days. So we're excited to have these and options available to you all. So I think turnaround's going to be very quick.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Anybody else have any questions?
Hi, Mark. This is Becky with Evergreen Homes. I'm wondering about the signage. So in that phase one proposal that Ryan has shared with us, I understand that there is signage that's supposed to be posted at each hand washing location, but it looked like there was also additional signage that was just supposed to be on the job site as a whole, a more general sign. Can you just talk to me a little bit about the kinds of signage that you're prepared to provide?
Yeah, let me show you something else that that speaks to that. This is one of our key suppliers here, National Marker, and this would just kind of give you an idea of what can be done. The generic signing, yes, we'll have to have some verbiage in there about complying with the state of Washington construction requirements for back to work. We could possibly add the code number on there as well so that it can be very specific. That would be a unique sign that we would have to order from one of our suppliers, but not seriously, not a long lead time to do that. And if we do get to that point and the governor does sign off on the guidelines,
Uh-oh. Did we lose you, Mark?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
okay, great. Can you still see my screen?
Yep. Can you show the national marker?
Yes. Okay, thanks, James. That's James Strohacker, our marketing director, that's here as well. So, yeah, we, when and if the governor signs it and we've got, you know, a code number that we could put on there, we'll print those and have those available as well. So we're trying to be as prepared as we can be so that you guys can get back to work rapidly. Did that answer your question, Becky?
Yes, it does sound like, so what basically whatever is mandated in the order that the governor hopefully eventually agrees to, you'll be prepared to provide that signage.
That's
to
correct.
these members. Okay.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. We really appreciate that. I think that will help big and small builders alike just be able to hit the ground rolling and not have to wait to kind of gear up ourselves.
Yeah, trying to figure it out is going to be probably the biggest hurdle for most. And for you folks that may be, you know, maybe not the general, but acting as the key super on a job site, having these answers are going to get your subs compliant and keep you all out of, you know, a non-compliance type of work stoppage. Nobody wants that. One of the things that James and I were asking Ryan and Tracy, the other guys last week, was as far as logging employees onto the site. We anticipate that being one of the big challenges that you might have. I've done a little bit of research. There are some phone apps that are out there that maybe that's a little more solution than it really takes. Our thought is that you just create some sort of a Excel-based document, because all you have to log the person, their name, contact information. I'd probably want their company name as well, and the date that they were on the job site. This is part of the surveillance of possible pandemic spread that will likely be required. Stoppage is eased up on. So I know that that's not an easy thing. You guys have subs coming and going all day, but it's just if they were on your job site at all that day, you need to go log their name and number into the book and then just keep it.
So Becky, I appreciate that question. I just want to respond real quick too, because you had actually had a very good question that you included in your registration asking about some of this stuff, the job site requirements, you know, the recovery plan mitigation stuff. And obviously, as Mark mentioned, and I think I mentioned, you know, we don't know what those look like. Depends on how far the governor goes with accepting this or if he does accept it. But BIAW has already said as soon as they get more information, they will produce documents, or the documents they believe they can produce, provided based on what he is, whether it's a hard document like the signage that Mark could provide for us, or if it's templates for a login and stuff, BIAW is going to work to provide that as well. So I appreciate that question. And so we are all a little bit just kind of not guessing. We've got a very good framework, but you know, the devil's in the details. And so when we get that between Mark and and James, and I think what the BIAW can provide us, we'll have a lot of those put together. My assumption would be if this goes forward, it would probably be a few days after the announcement that it would go into effect. And so that would give us time, me to work with BIAW to get you the information, and then have BIAW work with Mark and James to get you the stuff that they can provide. So I think that's where that's sit, but I do appreciate that question. And I want to make sure I answered it before I forgot about it.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I think that is, will be a load off of the builders to just know that they'll be able to adopt and modify documents, as opposed to every builder trying to meet the requirements and starting from scratch. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Yep. You don't have to have 100 contractors out there creating their own wheel. We can, put a wheel together.
I just wanted to highlight something that Mark and James, when we were talking about this too, because we're hearing a lot of things. Some of these things are new to some of us, some they're not. But for like masks and stuff like that, you're seeing online. The concern. Well, N95s are obviously different, but even the masks that they're using, they're not N95s, throwing away, washing and stuff. And Mark and James let me know there are a lot of solutions out there that are washable. You can give them to your employees, and they're responsible for them. So it's not always disposable, throw away. So. There are solutions out there that are cost effective, that are different than what you hear every day in the news, kind of, because that's a different use, right? And so there are actually professional masks that are compliant, as Mark mentioned, and there's a lot of ways to get to that. So there's going to be solutions, more than one solution, depending on your job site, how many people you have, and stuff like that. So I know there has been some concern because they hear stuff. People have heard some stuff about certain types of masks and stuff, but Mark and James assured me there are a lot of solutions that would probably fit this bill, depending on what your needs are. Did anybody else have? Oh, and I guess along the other lines, I just want to give you guys all an update too. As we move forward with this, I see Aaron Marvin's online too. Aaron and I have been spoken with Mark and James, Tracy Dorio, Michael Schanenberger, a couple others of you, try to get an idea of the different needs across the different company sizes, project sizes, things along those lines. And there's a couple of ways of going about this too, which we can continue to discuss. I would love to discuss with any of you if you want to call me or email me after this about how doing this. There has been questions like, well, what do I do about subs? There's a couple of ways to deal with it. If Mark and James have a solution, you can point your subs directly to them and say, hey, you need to have this stuff before you get on site. You could provide it, right, and just write it into your contract. I know a few of our members I've spoken to said, there's going to be a new, basically an addendum to their current contracts with their subs that say you have to have this stuff before you can walk on site. So there's a couple different solutions. Mark and James, they obviously are going to help us with this. They obviously have the ability to do very large orders and stuff too. So we've also thrown around the idea of doing like a group, basically like Mark had mentioned, right? A cache. We do a big group thing, and then you guys individually get it from them as a way to have a large order that's kind of in place for our membership as well. But there's a bunch of different solutions. I don't have answers to those. I'm not sure if Mark or James does either, because we're still waiting on seeing how this shakes out. But I'm assuming by the end of this week, we'll have a little bit more direction, and that will allow Mark and James, along with the help of some of you guys, to figure out what the best couple of different solutions are. It would be a little bit premature at this point to go any farther on some of the details of those until we know exactly what the governor is going to demand. But did you have anything to add to that, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Ryan. It's good to have these things that we're working on, but until the governor actually signs something and we know exactly what that requirement's going to be, we're not going to mobilize any additional product or anything like that. But as soon as we know, then we will order in. Basically, it's the signs that are going to have some sort of lead time to them. The other products we mostly have in stock. So turnaround time, again, won't be very long. I did want to add one other thing about the masks and respirator requirements. This isn't going to change any of the other OSHA requirements that you may deal with. So if you're cutting on galvanized or welding product or grinding of concrete, which creates silica dust, you will still have to comply with standards on your job site to protect your employees from those type of toxins. But for a general carpenter or an electrician that never comes in contact with toxins like that, they will have to wear a compliance mask to meet the new standard as we understand it today.
So I'm gonna ask one more time for the last questions for Mark and James to let them go on their way if they'd like, so I can wrap up with the rest of you guys if you have questions. But did anybody have any more questions specifically for Mark or James regarding Mallory or the safety equipment they can provide or stuff about this conversation?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
This is John Gerard. What's the protocol for work that's currently being done? Right now, there are jobs out there. People are working. It's limited, but they are working, and you've got all these different suggestive safety protocols. What should we be doing now?
Well, John, this is Ryan. I can answer that. BIA is off as a document that's best practices that people are following. I'd say that's your best choice. There is nothing from the governor's office specifically, though.
I realize that. So we're using that. So my question is, I don't want to be the guy waiting for May 4th to start that week if that materializes to wait for stuff. If I was to take a risk, maybe I can get Mark your contact. I'm from my phone right now. But it'd be nice to really have, if I have to take a risk and buy some stuff, I'm willing to do that. And I wouldn't mind trying with a package. It's better probably than what we're doing currently on our job sites now. We're trying to do our best, but it's eclectic right now.
So John, actually, that's a great point. I will include Mark's contact info or James's contact info in the notes after this. I'll send it out as quickly as possible because I don't have much to add to it compared to last week. So I will send that to you so you can get a hold of it. And I think that's a great point. What they're going to offer for this package, I think it's going to be required. Whether or not he accepts this proposal and when it goes into effect, this stuff will be required. We're positive of that. So I think by getting it now to work under those precepts right now, as well as the understanding to get stuff in place, I think that would be minimal risk, and I think it'd be actually a good way to move forward.
Yeah, I'd like to pursue that so you can provide me the contact. And I got another question. It may not be for Mark, but it might be for the group. It's on risk management. I taped those press conferences, and yesterday one of the reporters asked a very astute question. Are businesses going to be held harmless because of the lack of the kind of a clarity with safety plans? I find myself as an employer at great risk here because there's a lot of holes in what we're supposed to do, let alone who enforces it. On job sites, we've talked to L&I. They don't even know what to enforce right now. So the question is, if you're lobbying the state, that'd be something to talk to them about, Ryan, is just some risk protection by the employers.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point, John. I believe that has been part of the discussion. That was, I think, Greg or someone mentioned as the follow-on. That's the follow-on discussion with the governor once he accepts this, what kind of things they have there. I believe Jan has actually put together a list of some of those right now, and she's working on those to move forward with that. So actually, it's a very good point. As soon as I get more information regarding that back from Jan of what they're asking the governor for along those lines, I can make sure to send that out to everybody. But yeah, I know Jan is working on that. That was a concern that came up as well. So they want to get that stuff put into place.
I mean, I can understand these surveillance logs and things like this, but really the general contractor, home builder, that is a tough ask. And it reminds me of really construction defect. If there's a problem, everyone's going to get thrown into the pot. And I'm a little bit concerned about if someone gets sick and have health problems, it's coming my way. And we're trying to comply. This is one of those Chinese puzzles, so to speak. There's no right answer to it.
Yeah, John, I think you bring up a very valid point. Company liability in this situation is obviously going to be a big concern for everybody. What I believe is best practice is to clearly communicate to all subs what the requirement is. Do your darndest to ensure that they've signed all those things and that you are complying with whatever the new regulations might be. And if it really does come down to it and you can substantiate your position of collecting names, having a logbook, providing PPE, whatever it might be, your chances of being liable are lessened dramatically. Just like with all the other PPE requirements that are out there through NIOSH and OSHA, like anything else, you've got to document to prove that you did what the
Smart to
Mhm.
Ryan, and I'm willing to head it. It's kind of like that builder group, but I'm willing to head a safety, some sort of a committee, Ryan. Find out who might want to be involved. Mark, you're more than welcome. You provide a very critical piece here. With Washington, where all the builders are doing something similar. At least our members. I think that would be a good service. I've done a lot of work already on this stuff, but it's just every time you turn, you just still don't have the answer. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Hey,
there's
Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is Steve Madsen. I'm general counsel for Aho Construction. One of the other, I guess, things that come to mind are if we're communicating with our general liability insurance providers and our bonder providers, because they would all obviously have a dog in this fight as well, if in terms of liability.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Steve. Thank you.
And responding to John's comment about a committee, we'd be happy to be part of that, just from a, not necessarily technically a subject matter expert, but we do live in this world and understand what the laws and regulations require. So be happy to be part of that. One little bright spot that I caught on the internet, I think yesterday, was that OSHA has actually relaxed the respirator fit testing requirement for the rest of this year.
Huh.
Have all been through that before. If there's, let's say you're a contract company or a concrete company, and after you pour forms or footings, you're cutting to put other utilities in or whatever it might be. The cutting of that concrete creates a lot of silicon dust, which is requirement. The employees doing that work have to be wearing a respirator. To wear a respirator, you have to be fit tested so that you can ensure that that respirator isn't going to cause some other kind of secondary problem to a person that might have lung issues. And to allow employers to provide the respirators that are needed this period, they've done away with that part of the regulation, the fit testing regulation, which takes a lot of various steps out of the equation. But that is short term, is a little bit off track from what you guys are really going to be addressing here. And that's just going to be that compliance mask that we looked at a minute ago.
So well, I know, so if there are any other questions, I'd love to let Mark and James go. I know they got a lot of other stuff. I've taken a lot of their time over the last couple of days, but was there any more questions from Mark or James specifically to what they're offering or helping us with? All right. Well, Mark and James, you're more than welcome to stay on for a little bit longer, but thank you very much for helping us today, and thanks for working with me on all this. Obviously, we'll be in touch on this, and I will provide my show notes will include a link to get a hold of you guys, so people like John and some others could probably discuss some ideas. I think those conversations will be very informative for putting packages together, real world solutions. So, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Great,
everyone.
Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day. Appreciate it.
So I guess the last thing I have on my agenda, well, there's two things, but local jurisdiction update. Just unfortunately, or fortunately, to some extent, I don't have much to update you on. Not much has changed in the jurisdictions. Obviously, Camas is still a concern for a lot of you, but That's from the mayor, and he is not budging, even though we've worked with the city attorney, and the city attorney sees some value in making some changes. The mayor is not budging. So I know that's a question for a lot of people, but we're kind of hit a wall there. That is why, if you are working in cannabis, I would encourage you to have your clients, not yourself. There's not a lot of stroke there, but your clients do. Have your clients reach out through phone calls or emails to the mayor and the city council. And information is provided on our website under the COVID link under Canvas. So I really encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to also, if you're building in Vancouver, to do the same thing and have your clients send information to Vancouver. I do, out of all the jurisdictions, I do have one update since last week, and it's kind of a pseudo update. Vancouver has refused to put anything in writing, give me anything for our website to say what they're allowing, what they're not allowing under the governor's order. They are basically say they're allowing, stuff that fits with the governor's order, but they're not defining it internally. However, last night on at the city council meeting, Bart Hansen, at my request, had asked questions about what was going on with construction, what's allowed, what's not allowed, what can they do that's similar to Ridgefield, Battleground, Center, and Clark County. And there was some back and forth, but their head of comm development department said, explicitly stated that it's a project by project basis. Builders are coming to them and asking and certifying basically through a document, a form saying, their building or whatever they're working on is compliant with the governor's order, which we would see probably spoliation and some other things along those lines. There is no definition if that qualified as, if you're trying just to close certificate of occupancy for someone that's about to sell, which a lot of other jurisdictions are working in. But that was stated. I'm going to try to get a hold of that office to get some more information. They have not provided that form to me. So at this point, I would recommend, if you have a project in Vancouver you want to move forward and you think it would qualify under the governor's order, that you reach out directly to Vancouver and ask them about it and ask them if they have a form for you to fill out. As I said, they have not given it to me for me to post or provided more information to give to you guys generally, but I know, talking through a few of our members and what was stated at council last night, that they're doing a project by project basis. So I'd recommend reaching out to them directly. Were there any questions regarding the local jurisdictions? And as always, if you go to the BIA website and click on the COVID link, there's a little section there that has a link to every jurisdiction and what they're currently doing. I and Andrea update those pages regularly as soon as something comes in. Any changes are posted to Facebook, basically immediately to an internal and external Facebook page. So that's always updated real time or within a few minutes, actually. Andrea's put a great page together. So that's a great resource. I would say it's probably easier to go there than individual jurisdictions or even the BIAW site. It's a lot easier to read and it's a lot more concise than some of the other sites where stuff is buried. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, of course, but a lot of times, a lot of that stuff could be answered on those sites, and it is real time. So I guess the last item on the agenda is I had member roundtable. We kind of have this as part of the standard at the end of these meetings. If there's anything you want to bring up or discuss, now's the time to do that. I love to hear back from you guys. I mean, part of this reason of meeting with Mallory today or having them come on and also working with them on some other stuff was brought to me by a few of our builders, including Aaron Marvin and a couple others, about the concern of qualifying for, or complying with this proposal if we move forward. And there's conversations like this that actually even got this started. So it's all about what you guys bring to me. So if you guys have anything.
I got something for you, Ryan. It's John. So I guess the state, they had that kind of emergency fund that was I think $10,000 or something like that from the state, but there was $5 million in the pool. Do you know the status of that pool is still available or is it empty?
I do not know. The governor's office has not said anything. They've not given us updates. I've not heard anything. I can reach out, but they have not. I mean, basically they announced it. It's almost like a PR move. They announced it and then it went silent. They haven't talked about it since then. So I don't know, John. I will reach out and see if I can find out from BIAW, but I don't know. Has anybody even applied for that yet? Have you, John, or anybody else that's on the phone call?
No, we have not. We actually on that PPP, this is a tidbit here. We worked with Riverview on that, and we're getting that. Should get funded today or tomorrow, which is nice. Talking with Riverview, there's another round of stimulus money that got approved yesterday back in D.C. apparently.
Actually, it's not approved yet.
Okay, but imminent. And
yes, it is imminent today. They're supposed to do it.
Riverview wasn't quite so sure they want to go through the pain of that again, just FYI. They're a very tough process for them to work, put a lot of strain on them, but I thought that was an interesting comment that even though stimulus money will be there, they don't know if they want to lend it out. Kind of interesting.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good point bringing that up, John. At the federal level, they have a basically PPP or PPP2. It's about $350 billion that should go into the pipeline. According to everything, that it's a bipartisan agreement. They're going to wrap it up today. That should go in the pipeline. It's actually a $100 billion project. It gives $100 billion to local states to implement testing and stuff to get us back to work as well. It's a fairly large package. This is a more direct package. It's going to go to smaller lending institutions, what you guys work with. The intent is to go to credit unions more qualified lenders rather than just the big ones that the previous one had. The splashback and blowback for how they did the first one is pretty extensive, especially how it affected our industry and other smallers like restaurants and stuff like that. So this package, a good point, John. I think this package was intended to be an easier road for the lenders, as well as more a streamlined pipeline to get to the end user, because the blowback from what they created with the big banks has been very loud and very aggressive. And so that's the intent now. But like I said, all things indicate that it should pass today. So we should have an idea that who's going to start opening up those loans again. But yeah, like John, I haven't heard about the state one at all. I knew it was out there. I couldn't imagine $5 million lasting very, very long. But
no. So I did some rough calculations on just my career of how many dollars of really tax dollars, property tax dollars going into the state coffers. It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's just very odd that the governor would basically, particularly in Southwest Washington or Tri-Cities or Spokane, why we're shut down, our border states aren't, and the state's not coming in for relief. I just find that odd. Maybe there's some lobbying pressure to provide more funds from the state to get out to businesses, because why should the Fed, in my case, I've paid way more in taxes to the state than I have the Fed. Just a principal question more than anything else. I doubt they have the money, but it's just odd.
thanks, John. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to add before we wrap this up? Well,
can you share your screen?
Yes,
hey,
Jame, I will do that right now. We've got 2 events coming up tomorrow that I want to make you aware of. One second. And let's see here. So I'm going to share this one, Jamie. Did you want to talk about this real quick?
Yeah, just real fast. So tomorrow's, our new construction webinars are starting tomorrow. John Blom and the interim county manager, Kathleen Otto, are going to be speaking at 10:30. I know the BIA has a rebate webinar tomorrow at 11. So if you guys can pop on at 10:30 and just listen for a little bit, I think it'll be really good information. We are taking a $20 donation to donate to the Boys and Girls Club for all 4 webinars. And if you want to get signed up, you'll have to get in touch with me because I have to register everybody. So that's happening tomorrow. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Jamie, for reminding me. I would have forgotten, like I mentioned. And then, Andrea, did you want to mention the other webinar that's going on tomorrow?
Sure. I'm not going to share my screen because I can't get out of this, dang it. Okay, so basically tomorrow at 11 to 11:45, we have a BIAW member rebate program webinar. So if you're looking to save money on popular products that you use every day, and either you're registered in the program and don't take advantage of it, or you're not and you just want to learn more, if you hop on that tomorrow for about 45 minutes, the program rep will be able to answer any questions you may have. So, and all the information for joining that webinar is on our website.
All right. Well, if we don't have anything else, everyone, thank you so much for getting on today. I really appreciate it. I will send the show notes out from this meeting. I will include the contact information for Mark and James, so you can reach out to them individually, maybe start getting prepped for other stuff coming up. If we hear more from the governor's office or from BIEW regarding the proposal or what we see moving forward, I will keep you in the loop. Just understand that the governor has not kept anybody on the loop, not just our industry, but others. Basically, most people have found out what he's doing through a press event. So that might be the case, but if I hear anything else, I'll make sure to let you guys know. Thanks everyone.
Ryan.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good night.
All right, thanks.